do it. What's up, y'all? So, my name is Mya. I really just wanted to make this testimony video because I've had so many different conversations with so many different types of young women throughout my years here in Tallahassee, and especially now more recently than not. People really feel like they're alone. People really feel like they're the only ones going through stuff or that have ever gone through things. And a lot of times they see me now engaged, making good grades, about to graduate next semester, XYZ, and they don't feel like, I or we can relate. And so I just wanted to share a little bit of my story. So I know a lot of people have parental issues, whether it's, mom or dad issues, and he might be mad at me for this, but I never really had the best relationship with my dad, growing up. My parents had me in high school. My mom was 17 when she had me, I think 16 when she got pregnant with me, and my dad's a year younger than her. And I know him to a certain extent. He was in my life enough for me to, know his name, know his face. And, he did for me in a lot of ways, but he wasn't there, like, to father me and to parent me. And even though I had, my stepdad in my life, I was really always looking for affirmation and acceptance from, my dad. And there's a whole list of things that came with that, but that really affected, just how I grew up, how I saw myself, just how I developed relationships or didn't develop relationships. If you don't know, which you probably don't, my dad is a retired NFL player. And so I was always kind of withdrawn because I never really felt like people wanted to, be with me because of me, maybe because of what they thought I had, because of who he was, or, what they thought I could do for him, or for them because of him. And then on top of that, I just had all type of issues because of me and his relationship. So I never really associated with people like that. I was always very reserved. Fast forward, I get to high school and, I meet this guy, get into a relationship. And when I came here to Tallahassee to go to college, I was still in that relationship. Me and him had been dating for about a year at that point. I was still a virgin, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to take on the world. And life didn't happen like that at all. To be frank, I really got hit with, some years worth of foolishness. And I've always been the type of person where if I can see my fault in something, if I can see where I need to take responsibility for something, then I don't complain about it. I just try to make it better because at the end of the day, it's my choice that I made. And so now I have to deal with the consequences of it. And being that way really, to a fault, really, it messed me up in a lot of different ways because I didn't realize that, you need to take responsibility, but some things you can't fix. And so basically what ended up happening was our first couple of months here, we got into a really bad argument. And I had some real anger issues back then, and I started fighting him. Like, I blacked out and just started throwing hands because I was not a talker. I was not a yeller. Like, I'm not finna go back and forth with you. I'm just gonna fight, and that's that. And so I didn't realize how ingrained that was as far as my personality until I got into my first argument with him. And like, he was yelling and like he yelled in my face and I just saw red, and next thing I knew, it was on. And so I felt so bad about that, like, because I was just like, bro, like, what's wrong with me? Like, why did I just snap like that? And again, like, I'm a very like internalizer, so I'm thinking, okay, like, what is wrong with me? Like, what do I need to do, to have this not happen again? What can I do to change? And I even talked to my mom about it, and she was just like, Mya, like, yes, you probably do need help in whatever ways, but if you're in that relationship and it's bringing that out of you, then you don't need to be in that relationship. But of course, I knew everything and I didn't listen, and I wanted to fix it while still being in that relationship. And so it just kind of went downhill from there. That turned from fighting that one time to fighting, 3 times a week, for like the next year and a half. And that turned from, me trying to figure out like what I needed to do to keep this from happening and to be better, to me actually starting to get better, me actually starting to, change in a lot of ways, and him being the one that was hitting on me. And I accepted it because in my mind, like, I made this monster, in my mind, everything was good before the first time, like, I popped off on him. So for the next 2.5, almost 3 years after that, I would be the one getting hit. I would be the one, getting beat. And I stayed there because, like I said, like, I felt like it was my fault. I felt like I deserved it. I felt like, if I was better in whatever ways, then it wouldn't be happening. And in that process, from year 1 to, almost year 4, my life just started going downhill. I started off at FSU, and I stayed at FSU for almost 2 years. And in that time, I went from being a National Honor Society student in high school and making straight A's to barely having above a 2.0 GPA at FSU. I changed my major like 5 times, and eventually, like, I had to switch to criminology because that was the only major at FSU that I could find that didn't have a GPA requirement, because I was sitting literally right above a 2.0, and like, once you drop below a 2.0, you're not in good academic standing. So I was just a hot mess. Like, I wasn't going to class. I gave him my virginity like 2 months into being in Tallahassee, and literally all my life was him, like, having sex, not waking up for class, just failing in so many ways. And still in my mind telling myself that I'm trying, like, still in my mind telling myself that all of this stuff is just growing pains, and I just have to figure out a way to, like, make it all work. So yeah, after that, like I said, I was at FSU. I ended up just figuring that it would be best for me to just leave that alone, because I knew if I did another semester there with everything that I had going on, then I was definitely gonna fall below good academic standing, and it was just gonna make my life 10 times harder. So I did 2 consecutive semesters, and then after that I started, I'll start a semester, then I'll withdraw through that semester, like halfway through that semester, then I'll try again, and then I'll withdraw, and it was just a whole cycle. So finally, I believe it was like fall 2018, spring 2018, I started my first semester at TCC, so that I can, just try to rebuild my GPA, just go to TCC and get my AA, and then hopefully, I can do something after that. So after that happened, I just didn't know what to do. I was searching for peace. I was searching for all types of stuff. I developed a really, really bad relationship with my family. Me and my family have always been close. Me and my mom, like, my mom was literally like my best friend. And in the process of that relationship, I I withdrew. Could nobody tell me anything when it came to that relationship. Like, it was just bad. And so I barely was talking to my family, because I was acting like that. They weren't really supporting me as much as they used to. It was just, I was just alone. And the devil loves to do that. Like, he loves to isolate you and to get you by yourself and to think that, you're alone in whatever you're going through. And so I'm sitting there, not knowing how I'm going to finish this bachelor's degree, like not knowing what I'm going to do about this relationship, and just looking for identity, looking for purpose. And yeah, so I called myself a Christian. I was going to church and, seeking God in whatever ways, but it wasn't biblically, I guess, because I was still doing what I wanted to do. I was still drinking, smoking, having sex out of wedlock, like all this other type of stuff. And it had gotten to the point, like with the stress of that relationship, that like I was smoking so heavy. I was smoking maybe probably like 1.5 grams a day by myself, and then if it was me and him, maybe like 1/8 a day. I don't know. But it was bad. And I saw my health declining. I was so stressed out. I lost so much weight. I was like the skinniest I had ever been. My hair was falling out. Like, it was thinning. And it was just sad. But I was still holding on. And I felt like, God was telling me to move on, like to stop. God had started convicting me about having sex, and I knew I needed to be abstinent. He had convicted me about smoking, and I knew I needed to stop that, but I was just stuck in this toxic cycle. Man, on top of that, and see, it's so hard to do these type of videos, because I'm sure a lot of the people that may watch this may know my ex or know of my ex, and I'm not trying to point fingers or bash anybody, because I had a lot to do with the situation. But it is what it is. I gotta be real. So yeah, in that I was supporting him in a lot of ways, just financially, emotionally, and just two lost, insecure people just never make a good pair. And so, both of us were smoking a lot and not really doing anything with our lives, but saying that we want better. Anyway, so there was a lot to that. We ended up, and I don't even think my parents know this, but we ended up shacking up together. I believe it was 2017. We ended up living together. I'm sure they figured it out, but yeah, so we got an apartment together, because it was one of those okay, I guess it's just me and you against the world type situations. And so we got an apartment together, and that just made everything 10 times worse. We were fighting more. It was just a hot mess. We ended up getting evicted from that apartment. And the apartment was in his name. And so when we got evicted from that apartment, I didn't have anywhere to go, didn't have anybody to turn to, or at least that's what I felt like, because my relationship with my family was trash at that point. I was barely talking to my mom, I was barely talking to any of my family, and those were really the only people that I would have had to turn to. So yeah, when we got evicted, I was working at a daycare at the time, and the director of that daycare took me in to come live with her, because she saw just the state that I was in, and she saw that I really needed help. So I slept in the spare bedroom of her house on an air mattress for a good 3 or 4 months, until I finally was just you know what, I'm just gonna go back home, and we're just gonna figure something out from there. So I asked my mom, could I come back home? I went back home, stayed at home for literally 2 weeks, and then I was just I can't be here. Nothing that my parents were doing. I just I knew my story wasn't over. I knew my story wasn't done. And so I was just like, I got to come back to Tallahassee. I had to beg my grandmother to be in guarantor for my apartment. I got that apartment, got another job, but still was dealing with the guy, like still was in that toxic relationship because I'm stubborn and I wouldn't let it go. And it just kept getting worse. Once I made that decision and I was in that apartment, my grades were still trash. Like, I'm at atTCC working twice as hard to try to just get back in the groove of things. I'm still smoking just as much. We're still fighting twice as much, maybe like 5-6 times a week at that point, at least a little spat every day. And honestly, that whole season of my life ended with me having at least like a black eye a month, at least some type of scar, bruise, bite mark, something, once a week. Like, glasses broken, jewelry broken, clothes torn. Like, I literally, everything that I had at one point in time, like, it was broken or lost. Because I was just in a lot of foolishness. I got raped in the backseat of my car. And it's so crazy because that day when that happened, I had such a low self-love and such a low self-esteem that after he did that, I actually willingly had sex with him literally 2 seconds later because, again, like, I felt like it was all my fault. I felt like it was just all on me, and I felt like I had made him this monster, and he fed into that, honestly. And so, after he did what he did to me, I was just like, how could you? And he made me feel like I had to do something for him to, like, help him feel better about the situation. And that's just, again, a whole nother story. But yeah, I was at such a low point, getting choked out. I've been unconscious on the floor, on the ground, like, I don't know how many times throughout my life, and all of this I was dealing with by myself. And so it got to a point where I was desperate. I was desperate. I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know what to do, who to turn to. And so I started praying. Started praying hard and just started asking God, like, Lord, like, what do I do? And he just kept telling me to, like, be obedient. That's really all I had to do, is be obedient. And it sounds so simple, but it's so hard to do when you're stuck in cycles, when you're used to something, when you're just comfortable in your desperation, honestly. And so it took so much for me to get sick of it. Like, I could have been in jail so many times. So God was just really telling me to be obedient in so many types of ways, because I was saying that I wanted better. I was saying that I wanted different, but I wasn't showing that with my actions. And I had to get to a place of desperation where I was tired of getting choked until I'm passed out multiple times a week. I was tired of black eyes. I was tired of smoking all of my emotions away. I was tired of giving my body to guys, protected and unprotected, like, that weren't my husband. I was tired of having such a low self-esteem and such a low self-love to where I was allowing all of these things in my life and all of these things into my body. I was tired of not having peace. I was tired of just where my life was at that point in time. And I know there are some people that may watch this video that they may be better or worse off than what they're hearing from my situation, but I guarantee you nothing is better than life with Jesus. And when I got to that point where I was desperate enough to really cry out and mean it, I started seeing a change in my life. But the thing is, that change didn't happen immediately at all. Looking back, I can see God's sovereignty and God's intentionality, but in the moment, it seems like things were getting a lot worse, and I didn't see better in sight. So yeah, honestly, I wanted to just let, whoever is listening know that, you don't have to be in that situation. It took for me to get to a point where I was tired of seeing marks and bruises and all of this other stuff on my body. I was tired of, harming my body with tobacco and weed and liquor, and I was tired of trying to drown my emotions in not only these substances but in guys. I was tired of not having a relationship with my family, and you don't have to get to that place. You don't have to get to such a point of desperation and such a point of isolation and loneliness to make a change, because Jesus is available right now. I know I am hard-headed, I'm stubborn, and I had to get to a place where literally no one or nothing could pull me out except for him. And once I started coming to that realization, once I started getting to a place where I was maybe almost ready to let go, I actually met Rashad. And so to see or hear about, I guess, where that story went from there, because trust me, it is not over. But to see where that story went from there, check out our video on how we met, and just how that whole season of my life, I hadn't gotten accepted into FAMU yet. My GPA was still looking like trash. I was still feeling like crap. I was still entertaining whoever. And yeah, so check out the next video.